stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power, and his throne and great authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshiped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. And they also worshiped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?" The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander God's name and God's dwelling place and those who live in heaven. It was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all those whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who is slain from the creation of the world. Whoever has ears, let them hear. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword they will be killed. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of God's people. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. It exercised all the authority of the first beast on its behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. And it performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from the heavens to the earth in full view of people. Because of the signs, it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast. It deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is humanity's number. That number is 666. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
May the words of my lips and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, our God and our Redeemer. Amen. Perhaps one of the most famous sermon illustrations goes something like this. On a dark and cloudy and foggy night, the captain of a ship sees a light of what he believes is another ship in the distance. He radios the other ship saying, "Please adjust your heading 10 degrees to avoid a collision." The other ship responds, "Negative. You must adjust your heading 10 degrees. The captain of the first ship isn't pleased, and he responds, "I am Captain John Smith of the United States Navy. I'm a war hero recognized around the world. You will comply with my order and adjust your heading." The captain puffs out his chest to the other sailors in the bridge with a smile. A response shortly comes. "Captain Smith, it's an honor to be on the radio with you, sir." The response is deliberate and formal. "My name is Master Sailor James Jones of the Royal Canadian Navy. With all due respect, sir, I must request that you adjust your heading. Captain Smith turns bright red and shouts into the radio, Master Sailor Jones, I am commanding the USS Nimitz, the largest and most powerful aircraft carrier in the United States Navy. You will adjust your heading immediately, or you will be fired upon. A tense moment passes, and Jones responds, Captain Smith, I'm in charge of a lighthouse. Typically in this illustration, this is when the preacher talks about pride or formality, or causing us to make poor decisions, or how humans have a tendency to get in their own ways. While all of those points would in fact fit with the message I'm about to preach, I wonder if the story really would end there in our current day. Or would Captain Smith simply respond, so what? We're the most powerful ship, we're the most powerful navy, we're the best country behind us. And when Canada becomes our 51st state, you'll understand what that means. And run his ship directly into that lighthouse. I don't know. But before I go any further, we have read now through the book of Revelation. I want to make a few things clear before I say too much more. First, the book of Revelation is a set of coded and symbolic visions attributed to John the Evangelist, who is presented as the only apostle who was not killed directly for his faith. That said, the chronology of John's life, assuming that this is John the Evangelist who actually knew the historical Jesus, and the writing of the book of Revelation doesn't exactly line up. More than likely, we're reading from one of John's disciples, maybe even someone who's a generation or two removed from the historical John. Second, Revelation uses significant symbols and language, which, like most of the Bible, would have meant something at least slightly different to the people of the time in which they were written than they do to us today. For example, popular literature has made a lot out of the number of the beast, 666, while failing to recall that Latin, Greek, and Hebrew letters also had numerical values. The letters for Nero, the Roman emperor who persecuted the church with such unimaginable cruelty, would add up to 666. So we have to be very careful when we read Revelation to not draw out meaning that wouldn't have originally been there for the people it was written for, in the time and the place it was written, including what we read today. We also have to remember that the book of Revelation, as we have received it, has a number of translations. For example, in Revelation 13:18, the last verse of what we read tonight, one translation, the one that we use, says that 666 is not the number of some other beast. It is, in fact, humanity's number, insinuating that the monster, the beast, is not something that is actually beyond us as humans, but may, in fact, be us. Third, for any number of reasons, and for centuries now, people have latched on to the imagery found in Revelation, and they've exported it into their art, to their literature, to their sermons, to the point that many people believe in a devil with horns and wings who prowls the earth, as we used to say in Catholic school, seeking the ruin of souls. As your pastor, I sincerely encourage you to drop those images. I encourage you to drop images that intend to personify evil in forms fantastical. Much less than horned devils with wings have caused humans and communities to exact monstrous torture and their degradation on each other. Fourth, evil does exist. It would be hard for any of us to look at the world today and say that evil does not exist. But that evil is less perpetrated by supernatural demons and mythical beasts, but by people who, frankly, are very much like you and me, or at least start out as people like you and me. For any of us who grew up fearing demons and the forces of hell that would someday come for our backslid, reprobate, unrepentant souls, we should in fact fear the true evil of the world, not in horned beasts, but in our fellow humans. And fifth, though I might want to, and though in one paragraph in this message I may come very close to doing so, I am not trying to portray President Trump or his administration as the beast or as Satan. That said, the book of Revelation does describe the consequences of systems and attitudes such as what we now call fascism, ultranationalism, white supremacy, Christian nationalism, and simply pure hate. With that said, today we continue to reflect on the fourfold path of lament. The fourfold path of lament, including mourning, asking why, holding on to hope, and moving and being moved to action. We also draw on the strength and the warning of this prophetic vision in Revelation 13. So let's begin again with mourning. For yes, to deny the pain that many of us are experiencing, to suppress that sorrow, is to deny the reality of what is going on in our land. Like the Apostle John and his disciples exiled on the island of Patmos, who received a vision of a monstrous horror, a beast rising from the sea, we too witness the rise of a system that seeks to enslave us in a number of ways. We see the echoes of this beast in the hypnotic march of authoritarianism, in the iron fist of fascism disguised as order, and in the systematic dismantling of the institutions that protect our liberties. We mourn the erosion of truth, the insidious decay of our shared understanding, and we live in an age where lies are peddled as gospel, where propaganda masquerades as journalism, where the very concept of objective reality is under assault. We weep for the silencing of dissenting voices, for the brave souls who dare to speak truth to power, only to be met with scorn, censorship, and even violence. Bishop Marion Buddy, if you remember, was but the first during the Trump administration. We lament the betrayal of promises, the broken covenants that once bound to us together as a community. We mourn the selling out of our principles for short-term gain, the elevation of greed and power over compassion and justice. We weep for the vulnerable, the marginalized, the ones cast aside by what is nothing more than a cold and heartless machinery of power. The poor, the immigrant, the refugee, the queer and transgender, the scapegoat, the other. We can all feel the weight of this sorrow pressing down upon our hearts. We taste the bitter tears of a broken faith. We feel the sting of injustice. All too often we know the burning shame of complicity. We are often convicted, and only by ourselves, that we were silent when we should have said something, that we failed to act when we should have acted out. The power of fascism and authoritarianism is built on complicity, and it is built on compliance. Do not let them tell you to be silent. Do not let them convince you to comply early or comply out of fear alone. Do not let them convince you that your pain is invalid, that your grief is weakness. Let your mourning be fertile ground for resistance. But lament, as we know, is not a passive surrender. It is not a descent into the abyss of hopelessness. It is rather a catalyst that compels us to ask the most fundamental, the most challenging, and the most soul-searching question. Why? Why do the powerful conspire against the weak? Why do purveyors of hate find fertile ground in our midst? Why do some choose to embrace the darkness, to bow before the false idol of tyranny? Revelation 13 offers a glimpse into the mechanics of this evil. It speaks of a beast rising from the sea, a chaotic and turbulent force, empowered by the dragon, the embodiment of primal evil. The beast, adorned with blasphemous names, demands worship, silences all opposition, and wages war against the saints. We see the echoes of this ancient vision in our own time. We see the seductive allure of authoritarianism, the promise of a false security, a twisted order that comes at the cost of freedom and dignity. We see the manipulation of fear, the exploitation of insecurity to justify oppression and consolidate power. We see the comforts offered in exchange for blind obedience and fealty. We must ask, why do some choose to bow before this false idol? Is it fear? Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of losing some perceived privilege? Is it greed? The insatiable hunger for power, wealth, and control, even at the expense of others? Is it a desperate clinging to a distorted vision of the past, a nostalgic yearning for a mythical past when America was great that never truly existed? Is it the allure of simplistic answers to complex problems, the temptation to surrender critical thinking in exchange for the comfort of blind obedience? Or is it simply arrogance and ignorance, a lack of awareness about the dynamics that built the past, seek to impact the present, and to continue to the future? And let's be honest, friends, sometimes it's just plain old bad information, like believing that the earth is flat, or that a vaccine denier should lead the Department of Health and Human Services, or that a demagogue's empty promises will lead to salvation. We must arm ourselves with truth, with the sword of critical thinking, and with a healthy dose of skepticism, a discerning spirit that can sift through the lies and discern the truth. We must educate ourselves, inform ourselves, empower ourselves to resist conspiracies and falsehoods. Even in the face of such darkness, even in the shadow of a beast, we must cling to hope. For the dragon may roar on TV and the beast may rage at 2 a.m. on social media. But the light of truth cannot be extinguished. The human spirit, when awakened and nurtured in community, is an unstoppable force. Remember, friends, that John's vision in Revelation, while filled with terrifying imagery, also speaks of the Lamb, the ultimate victor over evil, the embodiment of love and sacrifice, the promise of redemption and renewal. We indeed are not alone in this struggle. We are part of a long and sacred tradition of those who have stood against tyranny, who have refused to surrender their dignity, who have dared to dream of a better world. As Dr. Kingsor will put it, we hold on to the hope that the moral arc of the universe, though long, bends towards justice. We hold on to the hope that love will ultimately triumph over hate, that compassion will conquer cruelty, that light will dispel the darkness. We hold on to the hope that even in the darkest of times, the seeds of a new world are being sown. A world where peace reigns, where justice prevails, and where all people are treated with dignity and respect. As we've already said this Lent, lament without action is a hollow echo, a mournful dirge that fades ultimately into silence. So too, hope without works is a barren seed, a promise simply unfulfilled. We must rise from our mourning armed with truth, fueled by a righteous anger, and empowered by the unwavering conviction that a better world is possible. Fascism and authoritarianism are built on fear and disinformation, which lead to compliance. Fascists gain ground when people comply, not because they're required to comply, but because they believe the lies and falsehoods. They believe the lies and fear the outcomes that don't exist. We must be brave enough not to comply until it is absolutely necessary. We must disrupt the messages that tell people that executive orders are law or that courts have no power. We must speak the truth that no one is above the law. We must challenge the lies that poison our communities, the propaganda that distorts our perceptions, the narratives that seek to divide us. We must build coalitions of conscience, networks of solidarity, movements of change that will challenge the very foundations of this oppressive system. And friends, let us not be passive observers. Let us not be complacent bystanders. Let us not be silent. Remember, silence always supports the oppressor, not the oppressed. Let us be active participants in the struggle for liberation, architects of a new world, and progenitors of a just and equitable society. May our actions speak louder than our words. May our love be a weapon against hate, a shield against fear, and a beacon of hope in a world that unfortunately is shrouded in darkness. And may our faith be the fire that ignites the revolution of justice, the flame that burns away oppression, the light that guides us towards a future where all are free because all are loved.